about to commence our proceedings for today. And to do that, I would like to recognize the presence of Dr. the Honorable Ralph E. Gonsalves, the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. His Excellency Peter Shirley Lan, Ambassador of the Republic of China, Taiwan. The Honorable Camilo Gonsalves, Minister of Finance, Economic Planning and Information Technology. Mr. Anthony Redisford, Executive Director of the SVG Chamber of Industry and Commerce. Mr. Nigel Scott, the Chairman of the On-Site Steering Committee. CEOs and representatives of the business community. Staff representatives of the Republic of China, Taiwan. Members of the media, those listening on the National Broadcasting Corporation and wherever this broadcast is being carried this morning. It is my honor to welcome you to the information session of the consultation with participating businesses in the on-site program. Just before I continue, I'd like to recognize the staff of the Economic Planning Division, under whom this program is vested in the Ministry of Finance, Economic Planning, and Information Technology. Now, there is so much to this program, which was birthed in January of 2023. And we have several key speakers who are here this morning to guide us through this exercise. And to begin with, I would like to invite to the lectern Anthony Redisford. He is the Executive Director of the SVG Chamber of Industry and Commerce. Please welcome him.
Thank you, Madam Master of Ceremonies, Prime Minister, Dr. the Honorable Ralph Gonsalves, the Ambassador to the Republic of China and Taiwan, His Excellency Peter Shirley Lan, Minister of Finance, Honorable Camilo Gonsalves, Chair of the Steering Committee for the On-Site Program, Mr. Nigel Scott, staff of the Economic Planning Unit, business people, and I've never seen so many gathered in one place in a long time. So On-Site is bringing us on-site, which is good. Ricardo Frederick gave me a heavy-duty topic to deal with, and he said brief remarks. So I don't know how two of them can go together, but he asked me to address the issue of business ethics. Let's start with the Ten Commandments. What happened before that? What happened before Moses received this etched thing on the old-fashioned tablet? Were the Jewish people, were the Israelites of moral fortitude? Were they virtuous? Well, as I said, I am really not that qualified to expose on this, but from my understanding and my research, the whole question of ethics and virtue and morality was around before the Ten Commandments. The Israelites did have some sort of moral fabric. I'm told that, and those of you who are of a Christian persuasion or follow the Christian religion, that Abraham was somebody who spoke to moral virtues. And so that story begins. Let me bring it home now. Ethics, in one of the definitions, is the standards of conduct which indicate how we behave to each other based on moral duties and virtues, rising from principles of right and wrong. And once you hit that idea of principles of right and wrong, the discussion begins. It begins with great minds, many philosophers, Socrates, Aristotle, people on the Asian continent, African continent, all brought us here today to question on our journey, what are the rights and wrongs we're speaking about? It brings the question of core values, and I suppose I could condense core values to honesty, fairness, responsibility, respect, and compassion. And that's a condensation. And how does it relate to businesses? How do core values, those that I've mentioned, relate to how we conduct business as business people? So I think a business culture starts with the individual. The whole question of ethics cannot be necessarily a collective concept. I think it's an individual concept, but together it determines how we relate to each other. Businesses have a responsibility. Businesses have a responsibility to their employees, to their customers, to their stakeholders, of which there are many. Government is a big stakeholder in business, and there are other agencies that businesses deal with on a day-to-day basis. So, somewhere in the late 60s, 70s, the whole notion of business ethics started to be formalized. Business ethics I'm talking about. I'm not talking about those that were given to Moses on Mount Sinai. I'm talking about business ethics that became an official term around the late 60s and 70s, brought about by some world events. And I think it is fair to say that world events continue to initiate the evolution of the very ethics we're talking about. Most recent pandemic is such an example. How we do business, how we treat with what's around us. Climate change is another issue that speaks to business ethics, and I'll get to that later. So businesses have policies and practices that underpins how they operate business. They have legal and moral responsibilities, okay? Legal and moral responsibilities. Legal, you follow the law. A lot of what we speak about in terms of business ethics is in itself embedded in the law. It's there. If you follow the law, then largely you would get your operation ethically correct. But the moral responsibilities are also a very big part of how businesses are seen and how they operate. So it informs the code of conduct, and again, it determines or it aims to determine right or wrong for a business and its employees. Well, what do businesses do when faced with truth versus loyalty? That is an ethical principle. And that is one that speaks to how businesses conduct themselves. Generally, it's an ethical dilemma. We have to choose what is more prudent. Are we going to concern ourselves with the loyalty of the customer and our loyalty to the community in which we live? Or are we going to truthfully address the business need or requirement in front of us? I told you at the beginning, this is a philosophical topic. It's when you start dealing with the question of ethics, you're talking deep philosophy. Your decisions, your ethical decisions, are guided by short-term versus long-term gain. You may make a decision that benefits you in the short term, but it erodes your customer loyalty, the way people view you, the way you are perceived, the way your employees feel about working for you, that short-term decision may erode the long-term consequence. That, again, is an ethical principle. What about business versus the community? Whose interest do you put first? I mentioned the whole thing about the consideration of the environment, which is a very topical issue. Your business practices, are they ethically correct when you consider the impact it has on the environment? Should we continue burning carbon fuel? Should we use paper at a rate that is really not justified? All those things, okay? How do you dispose of your garbage? As simple as that. Is it somebody else's problem and not yours? That's another ethical principle. Justice versus mercy. This is one that has to do with compassion. Do we follow the book? You know, you have a business and you have a rule book for your employees. This is what they must do. But then there's an exception. Somebody breaks the rule. But do you just throw the book at them? Or do you exercise compassion? Do you say that that person who stole $20 from your cash till, if they didn't do that, meant the difference between the children getting a meal tonight or starving? I'm not for 1 minute telling you what to do. I'm just saying these are ethical considerations that cannot be embedded in law. It is a decision, and it's also of the business owner, and it is what makes up the business culture. So there's that justice versus mercy. Well, ethics typically address on the individual level your personal responsibility. I would tell you as business owners, I believe that employees generally strive to do to the best of their ability what they're tasked to do, generally speaking. I believe I come from the premise where all people are basically good. So it starts with the employee, personal responsibility, how they approach their job. What about you, the business? We call it corporate responsibility. Do you uphold your legal obligations? Do you pay tax? Do you make false declarations to customs? Do you pass on when the NIS building? Do you deduct NIS from your employees and not pass it on? These are all to do with ethics. You know, the whole question of honesty, meeting your corporate responsibility. Do you provide safe working conditions for your workers? Is there a lunchroom? How do your workers relieve themselves when they have a bodily function to perform? What about your manufacturing standards? What about your products? Are you delivering products to your customers and pricing them in a fair way? Or do you put that rotten potato in a bag of 8 so that the customer takes your loss? I see it. I complain about it. I'm in the Chamber of Commerce. I'm not the Consumer Association, but I think the Chamber of Commerce has, as a business support organization, has a moral obligation to set, or not to set, but to ensure that ethical standards are met. So that rotten potato in the bag of 8, so that in the bag of 8 good ones, one rotten one. Is that fair? Those moral obligations are very important. The on-site program, Ricky tells me that when he gave me this, lobbed this topic up in the air for me. He told me that really what he wanted me to talk about was businesses onboarding these interns and giving them guidelines as what their expectations are coming into their environment. But I think it's more than that. I think you have a responsibility to demonstrate to the intern that you have a good business culture. Within your organization, you have ethical practices. Because that intern, if you don't, that intern is going to think that this is what business culture is all about. This is what this is what business is all about, you know. Grab, bottom line driven, no moral responsibility. We live in a community and we're not playing our part. We just want to make our profit and go home. Okay? Business ethics deal with loyalty and respect. So it really addresses ways in which you can maintain that perception that you are a business worthy of doing business with. Or, in this case, you are a business worthy of employing people. And in this context, onboarding these interns that you have requested to get. So we have to look at that whole thing of loyalty and respect. Trust is currency. Trust is better than any currency that you trade with. Okay? I don't think I need to say a lot on that, because without trust, civilization would not exist. We have to be able to trust each other, but employees have to be able to trust the businesses that they work for. They're not being exploited. They're not being asked to work unreasonable hours, that their personal situation, their personal human situation is taken into consideration. They are humans. They're not, machines that are driven by artificial intelligence. So we have to build that sort of trust. Just as how we have to build the trust with our customers. The whole idea of fairness, that again goes without saying. Fairness is an ethical principle. Fair to your employees, fair to your customers. I would use an example. I was up at the grammar school this week, and one of the workers there came and said to me, recognize me as being something to do with business. So he said to me, how come you have products in a supermarket? That's my artificial intelligence phone telling me it's time to stop. But how come you have products, same product in different supermarkets, different shops, and the prices vary so widely? And he was concerned about that. Felt something was wrong. So I told him there's something called the market. And the market tends to, once the product is not price control, the market tends to regulate prices, competition in other words. Okay, I will shop by Mr. Coombs if he has the same product for $5 cheaper than his competitor. So his competitor will, in theory, go out of business eventually. But when I thought about that answer I gave him, yes, if the market is ethical, if the market is fair, if the market, there are no other dynamics. If it's a virtual monopoly, then what do? A monopoly or a duopoly is just two big players, So a lot of these things are not straightforward, and they certainly are even less straightforward if ethical considerations are not taken into account. Okay? So, finally, our community and our environment, our ethics must reflect, our business ethics must reflect our responsibility to the community and the environment. I think I spoke a little bit about it before, but we are all part. We're not, I remember the Prime Minister on the launching, at that time he was speaking to the interns, but he was mentioning the fact that we are part of a community. Okay, we're not, ships on the sea by ourselves. We're all part of a community. And to exist as a community, you have to play your part. You have to be aware of your moral and social responsibilities, your ethical values. Otherwise, we'll have anarchy. So, in closing, I'm making the appeal to businesses, not just to onboard these interns and think it's business as usual. The on-site program is really about these interns. It's not about you. It's really about these interns, okay? You have agreed to partner with the Economic Planning Division in this exercise. We have agreed. I stuck my neck out in the initial conversations about this program. I said, yes, I would stick my neck out for businesses. Being the executive director of the chamber, I said, yes, I'll stick my neck out for businesses. We'll come on as partners. So we're here. We're here for the benefit of the interns. They are not payroll savings. That is not how you are to view this exercise. Your interns are not savings to your payroll. You are there to introduce them into the world of work, make them more employable, and perhaps be employed by you. I'm rehashing some of the things that we said at the launch, but I take the opportunity nonetheless to remind you that this is what the program is all about. And I guess if you are an ethical business, then what I'm saying, I'm preaching to the choir. Okay? So thank you for listening to me. Thank you for enduring. And again, I hope that once the program gets going, you'll truly represent the goodness of our business community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Regisford. You've certainly given us a lot to consider. You've certainly given us a lot to consider this morning. And as you said, you're probably speaking to the converted. Our next speaker leads the ministry which is charged with the responsibility of this program. They have oversight functions of the on-site program, which equips the nation's youth to participate and gain work experience in the new and dynamic workspace. It gives me great honor at this moment, ladies and gentlemen, to welcome to the lectern and to address you the Honorable Minister of Finance, Economic Planning and Information Technology, Camilo Gonzalez.
Thank you, Dion, and good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
This is a great day, and I'm thrilled to see this many members of the business community here. Like Tony said, many times the government invites the business community to have conversations, and we get about 10 hours. So we're very happy to see a full house today. And next time I want to have a conversation about taxes or something, I'll promise you some employees to soften the blow. This moment is the culmination of over a year's worth of effort between among the government, the private sector, and the government and people of Taiwan. For those of you who pay attention to budget speeches, over a year ago, we said we were going to create a set type, yes type program, but instead of placing the interns within the government service, as is what normally takes place with the set program or the yes program, we were going to place the interns in the private sector to give them private sector experience and private sector mentorship. It took us a little while longer than we thought, because setting people up to work for the government and setting people to work for the private sector are two very different things. And the structure that needed to be put in place and the monitoring that needed to be put in place are two very different things. If you have 1,000 people working for the government, they're all working for the government, and there's structures in place that you can manage in a way that is different than if you put two people at different employers all around the country. And we also had the issue to discuss of funding, and very grateful that the ambassador of Taiwan and the government and people of Taiwan agreed to fund this first pilot of the on-site program. And I want to thank them very much for what they're doing. This year, when you add the interns on the YES program, the interns on the SET program, and the interns on the on-site program, the government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines is going to be paying in full for 1,100 young people to be taking internships across the country. And that's the first time in the history of this country that the state has paid for that many interns for that many people in a one-year period. And I'm very proud to be part of this, this internship thrust that we have today. When we launched on-site, we thought that we would be able to afford somewhere between 175 and 200 interns, depending on the salary bands that the interns ultimately fell in, because we have 3 salary bands. And we were hoping that to place those 4 salary bands, sorry. We were hoping that to place those 175 interns, we would get about 50 businesses or so to sign up. And I called Tony Regisford when we were planning this thing, and I said, Tony, do you think we could get 50 businesses maybe, so they could average, 3-4 employees each, and interns each? And he said, yeah, I think we can get it. When we went out to get expressions of interest from the business community, far from 50, over 300 businesses signed up and expressed willingness to mentor. So as many as we have placed, there are many more businesses who expressed interest who are going to go through this round without an intern. But this is only the first iteration of on-site, and we ask you to stay interested. I'm going to read some names now because I want to thank the businesses individually. Interns this year are going to be placed at A3 Automotive Group, Adams Brothers Engineering, Adams Insurance Brokers, Acon Construction, Alhap Customs and Shipping Agency, Ali's Garage, Alyssa Borsa, All Smiles, Arabesque, the Arnesville Medical Center, Astoned, Aldean's Cosmetics, the Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, BDO, Beachcombers, Beachfront Restaurant, Beautiful Beginnings Nail Salon, BMC Agencies, Boom 106.7. I have to do an ideology test on that one before we say that. Bank of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Breeze Travel, Brioche, Business Logistics Incorporated, Cable and Wireless. We still call it Cable and Wireless.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering.
Cardinal Law Firm, Caribbean Dreams, Chill Spot, Bar and Grill, Computech, Korea's Distribution, The Big Deal Hardware, The Salad Shop, Digicel, ECGC, East Caribbean Metals, Edwin D. Lane and Sons, Efficient Solutions, Fantasy Tours, French Veranda, Grenadine House, Georgetown School for Children with Special Needs, GTM Group of Insurance Companies, H&H Accounting and IT Services, Horticultural Professionals Company, Nature Care, Hotel Alexandrina, Impact Integrated Medical, Interior Motivation and Business Services, Isaiah's Electrical, Jacob's Real Estate, Jelana's Catering, Geno's Deli, Jubilee Beauty Salon, Jumpstart Educational Services, Kestrel St. Vincent and the Grenadines, King Auto, KPK Jacob Insurance Advisors, LA Unique Upholstery, Little Lady Seasoning, Musa and Sons, MR Catering, M&A Home for the Aged, Mangoes, Medical Air Services Association, MASA, Metrocint General Insurance, Metro Life Agency, My Crown of Curls, New Bay Stone Restaurant, One St. Vincent Group, Open Integrator Unlimited, Paladin SVG, Paradise Beach Hotel, Perry, Customs and Shipping Agency Limited, Pets and Medics, Professional Secretarial and Consultancy Services, Rainbow Unique Nursery and Preschool, Romeo Upholstery, Rosemary and Thyme, Rudy's Electrical, SG De Freitas and Company, Sagicor, Sky Blue Beach, Shekina Inc., Mavcom, Spazio, VC, St. Hill Insurance, St. Vincent Brewery, St. Vincent Building and Loan Association, St. Vincent Insurance Limited, Star Garage, Steneth Joinery, Styling Chic, Sunset Shores, SVG Save the Children, SVG School of Continuing Education, Shore Holdings, that's Love You, Cobblestone, The News, same test applies. Patriotic Company Limited, The Pitmaster, The Rehab, Tide Sand and Hand, Tropical Realism, VA Barnwell Associates, Vinci Fresh, Ward Agriculture, Williams Electronic Services, Young Island Resort. Wow. I want to thank all of you. Each and every one of you for what you have signed up to do, which is to mentor and train and prepare a new generation of workers and hopefully hire, when we're all done with this, your interns. This is a 6-month internship. And what the government is doing here today is providing support to the interns. And all of you have also signed up to provide support to the interns. The government is not providing support to you, the businesses. That is not the object here. We're spending $1.3 million and we're not doing it as budget support to the businesses. We're not doing it as payroll support to the businesses. We're doing it because each and every one of you will provide a unique opportunity to your intern to teach them about your business, to let them explore areas of their interest, and to prepare them for the world of work in the private sector. And we hope that many of you, after you're done the 6 months, won't come back and say, thank you for that worker. We're ready to sign up for the next 6 months. Send me a new guy. We're hoping that you will say, the intern has been trained. The intern understands how my business works. The intern is now a valuable member of my staff, of my organization, and we intend to keep the intern. And that is what we're hoping for out of much of you. And that is going to be one of the measures of success of this program. The first measure was how many people would we get to express interest, both potential interns and potential businesses. And both of those, wonderful, 100% were successful, and I'll give you a little bit of the numbers. The next phase will be the regular reporting that the employer and the employee have to do. How is the intern doing? Is the intern, him or herself, feeling like their expectations are being met? Are they learning on the job? And then when it's over, we'll do a sort of a post-mortem. But the next measure is when we call each and every one of you and say, did you keep your intern? Did you hire them? Why did you? Why didn't you? If there were 4 of them, why did you take 1 and not the other 3? Whatever it is. Because we want to be able to say at the end of this 6-month pilot that X percentage of the people who took up internships became full-time employees of the organization. That will be the ultimate success. Of course, anybody who works for 6 months, it's positive because now they have something to put on their CV that they worked for 6 months at Flow or Digicel or Beachcombers or Young Island or wherever it is.
Or Jelana.
Or the news or Boom. But that's one measure. But the greater measure, the ultimate goal, is that these people are hired and employed and successful members of the private sector. And of course, as Minister of Finance, that they're paying taxes. The program was hugely oversubscribed. As I said, we were hoping for 175 to 200 employees. We got applications from over 600 young people. Of those 600, maybe 150 plus were not eligible. Some of them already had a job, and we didn't want them leaving a full-time job for a 6-month internship, which has some uncertainty. Some of them were full-time students in school, in university, and we didn't think that full-time day school is compatible with a full-time day job. If you were an evening student at the School of Continuing Education, you were still eligible, but the full-time day students were not eligible. Some of them were interested in jobs for which we didn't have an employer to match them. Some of them wanted to work in particular fields or in particular locales, and we didn't have a match. So some of them were disqualified on those grounds.
Some were over 35.
Some were over the cutoff age. And so we whittled the list down from the initial 600 to about 450, giving rough numbers. And then the very hardworking team, led by the Director of Planning, Ricardo Frederick, and his team. And I want to stop and thank Ricardo for the hard work that he's done. And Ricardo and Marcel. And once I start, I'm going to thank too many people, but the team. And Mr. Nigel Scott, who is the chairperson, the chairman of the on-site steering committee. They did tremendous work in valuing, grading, determining which workers, which interns were most eligible for this program, and then pairing them with businesses. Some of the businesses wanted things that we couldn't provide. There were some dive shops, for example, who said we want people who can dive and hold their breath for more than 5 minutes or something. That wasn't on the form, so we couldn't pair everyone who wanted something. Maybe we can add how long can you hold your breath on the form for next season. And then we had certain categories. We had a certain allocation, a certain set aside for interns who were graduates of university, interns who were graduates of the community college, interns who had completed secondary school, and interns who were primary school level. The majority of the people who applied were either secondary school graduates or community college graduates. That was the bulk. The primary school segment and the university graduate segment were undersubscribed. What we've learned is that most of the university grads were employed, and that we don't have that many people under the age of 35 who have only completed primary school. So those, the top band, both those bands on either end of the spectrum were undersubscribed, and we had a lot of work to do to whittle down the secondary school and community college graduates. Then we had to match them with their interests. There was a strong interest in hospitality, and there weren't as many hospitality employers as there were people interested in hospitality. And then the next round of interest was general, what I'll call office work, financial services, professional services, banks and the like. Then there was a strong interest in health, wellness and beauty, trade and manufacturing, ICT and the like. And the hard work was done to match people based on their interest, match people based on their qualifications, match people based on their geography. We didn't want someone who lived in North Leeward traveling to a job in North Windward. And so there were a lot of considerations, and we whittled the list down to 189 persons. So what you'll see is that of the eligible people, 450 or so, only 189 got internships in this round of on-site, which is, I guess, Ricky, 40% of the applicants. I'm here to tell you that businesses who hire set workers get a tax credit for the hiring of set workers.
Also, yes.
Set and yes workers. And we have been saying this for years, that the tax credit will pay what you pay them. But there's very little take up. If you are interested, because a lot of you said you wanted more interns than we were able to give you. Some businesses said they wanted 8 interns or 10 interns, and they got 2 or 3. Reach out to your accountant or to the Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning, and we'll explain to you how you can fill your internship appetite with additional workers, additional interns, and get tax credits for the hiring and training of those interns. So please reach out to us on that. As usual, the women were far more interested than the men. 75% of the applicants were women. 76% of the applicants were women. 24% were men. That's probably another conversation. And of those awarded, 74%, so 139 of the 189 interns are women, and 50 of the 189 interns are men. We might have to have an on-site for men to try to generate some greater interest. I really think that we're onto something good here. And I think that all of you, all of us together, will determine whether or not on-site will be a regular part of the government's training efforts for young people ready for the employment sector. If this works, if we get good reports from our interns, good reports from you, the employers, and good results when the 6-month period is over. On-site will be back next year. It will be back bigger and better than it is this year. We'll learn from our mistakes. I'm sure we'll make some along the way. And this will become a regular part.
You spoke to Peter.
Peter and I have spoken.
Okay. As to bigger and better.
As to, again, but bigger and better we're working on. And this will become another pillar in what we're doing to prepare young people for the job market and their lives beyond school. We're doing work in YES. 600 young people are YES interns this year. We're doing work in SET. Over 200, 300 young people are working and learning as SET interns. And now we have on-site, which in its first year will have 189 young people. I thank you for your interest. I thank you for your corporate social responsibility. Because again, we're not giving you a payroll boost. We're giving you a student. We're giving you someone to learn your business practices, your ethics, what it requires for somebody to be a professional in the world of work. You'd be surprised how many young people come out with the degrees or the subjects, but don't come out with, maybe you wouldn't be surprised, come out with the know-how about what it takes to come to work every day and be a professional and give your best on a daily basis and earn your paycheck. These are values that only you can instill. And these are qualities that will make the entire workforce of St. Vincent and the Grenadines better, stronger, more versatile. We're entering a new era, a new trajectory of development here. And it's very important that our private sector helps us to produce the types of workers who can be adaptable and nimble and intelligent and functional in a number of different areas. That's what you're doing today. You're extending their education, you're doing your part, and together we can really make a difference in the lives of some talented young people in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Thank you very much, and we look forward to doing this again next year.
Thank you very much, Minister Gonzalez. And with your permission, I'd like to borrow something from which you just said to introduce our next speaker. You just mentioned, Minister, that we're on to something good, and I do believe that we're on to something good. And commendations and thanks we must give to the Republic of China, Taiwan, for funding this program to the tune of of $500,000 US. Ladies and gentlemen, a special round of applause for our next speaker, His Excellency Peter Shali Lang, Ambassador of the Republic of China.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Prime Minister, Dr. the Honorable Ralph Gonzalez, Finance Minister, Honorable Camilo Gonzalez, Mr. Anthony Rezersford, Executive Director of SVG Chamber of Industry and Commerce, and Mr. Nigel Scott, Chairman of the On-Site Steering Committee, and also as the Finance Minister referred to, the team in the finance, and all the representatives and CEOs of the business community here in St. Vincent and Grenadines. Of course, my colleagues from the embassy and the technical mission, friends from the media, other invited guests. Again, good morning.
Good morning.
I just have two important points to make. Firstly, whenever I give a public speech, I keep mentioning that Taiwan is the 20th in terms of the economic power ranking in the world. And in terms of the trade volume, Taiwan today ranks 16th. The success of the business growth and trade of Taiwan, I believe, is solely based on the solid and strong private and public partnership. That is why when the government of St. Vincent and Grenadines came up with this ideal, the minister just mentioned that's 1 year ago, and we had an opportunity to discuss the potential of us on board contributing this project, that we immediately jump on and say, we want this partnership, because we know how important it is to have the business and the government work hand in hand, because that's the only way that we can encourage economic growth, encourage employment rate, and make your own business grow to a potential level. So that is why we are so glad that we can be part of this on-site program. I must say that we are also part of the partnership of the Yes and SAT program. So we have a comprehensive package here in St. Vincent and Grenadines to work with you to encourage employment, encourage the internship. The second point I want to say is, again, from our own experience, the employees are probably one of the most important assets to your business. There's a joke in the working place. We used to joke about being an employee. We want to pick up our bosses, want to go to a good company. We want to have a nice boss to speak to. But please don't forget, because we are having hundreds of bosses and CEOs and business owners here today. Please ask yourself, is that only the employees picking up on you? No, you are picking on your own employees, because they are a very important asset. The business growth of your company actually depends on them, how well they can perform, how loyal they are to this company. So again, when you are entering an internship program like this, this is a great opportunity for you to pick up your future potential employees, because you have 6 months. These 6 months give you an opportunity to craft them the way you want them to do. And possibly at the end, you decided on a sustainable basis, keep them as a permanent employees. So I think this is very important. I can speak for myself. When I was studying in the US, because I was trained as an engineer, when I was sitting in the classroom, I don't know, honestly, I don't know what those classes are for. But I was fortunate to have opportunity to have an internship with a private company. And after 6 months, exactly the same time period that we are having here from on-site, after those 6 months, I gained a very good deal of real-time experience on what we are supposed to do. After those 6 months, I came back to the classroom. Every time the professor asked a question, I was almost the first to raise my hand and say, no, that question was wrong, because that's not what I learned in the intern. So I become confident. I know what my direction is. I know what we are talking about here. I think that exactly is what an internship program is about. So I want to just, before I wrap up my speech, to again thank the team from the Ministry of Finance of doing such a good work and hard work. We're only here to spend our fundings anyway, but they are the ones who went out and recruit all these employees. So I want to sincerely thank them, of course, the government of St. Vincent and Grenadines to letting us on board. And last but not the least, I heard so many familiar names when the minister was naming those business. These are some restaurants I go frequently, or banks I go frequently. So maybe next time around when I was there, please bring them over. Let me know what they are doing. Okay? Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. How good it will be if when you go to, for example, Young Island, that Mrs. Porter introduces that on-site intern to you. So, yes. Our next speaker, ladies and gentlemen, needs very little introduction, but one of the things about our Prime Minister is that he gets very excited when he's speaking about programs having to deal with youth and young people on a whole. Now, the offering national support for the internship training and employment on-site program is another program in the offing for young people in this country, coming on the heels of the YES and the SET programs. The government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines is contributing 40,000 EC dollars to make all of this a reality, in addition to the support and the funding provided by the Republic of China, Taiwan. Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Ralph Gonsalves, welcome you now to the lectern to bring remarks. Please put your hands together as we welcome the Prime Minister.
Complaints industry, the government does not make. Because complaints arise from dissatisfaction. But if you take the proposition that by and large, if you take this proposition as being true, that by and large, human beings are overwhelmingly in a condition of permanent dissatisfaction. That's why they have to be redeemed, That's why Christ came. We are in a condition, by and large, of permanent dissatisfaction. The question is this: how do we address this? You're here, you're dissatisfied, you reach here, your needs and wants are, the basic needs and wants are satisfied at this level. When you arrive here, you have needs and wants for yourself, your family, and you're in a state of dissatisfaction. And you go here, it's going to happen. You're only going to be completely satisfied when you reach Beulah land. The question is this, is that, do you understand the process by which you have come from here to here, and the process in which you're going there? And that's why the issues of hope, faith, and love are conjoined. But if all you are is in a perpetual condition of complaints without any idea from where you have come, where you are, and where you're going, and you see that there's a trajectory to get there, and it's all a process, and we have to do it in the quickest possible time. What I'm saying to you here, philosophers have reflected on this for generations, and I'm coming to the tenets because I want to give you an idea as to what shape the thinking. And I've been around with you now for 55 years as an activist in this region. And I've been in every single election as a candidate since independence in 1979. I'm the only one. And you've given me the honor and privilege of being Prime Minister for the last 22 years. By the time the next election, it would be a quarter century. And I would then have served more than half the time of our independent nation. So we have been together for a long time. I'm like that hopefully that comfortable chair you sit in front of the television, or you want to have your meal and so on. You just have to make sure that the chair ain't breaking down, it decrepit. You know what I mean? That you can still add value to the enterprise. And of course, I can speak in this manner because I really don't have any dog hunting in this race at a stage in my life. What I have to do is to continue to serve the people whom I love to the best of my ability, so help me God. Now, philosophically, the proposition that I've advanced to you about human beings being by and large overwhelmingly in a condition of permanent dissatisfaction. And I've explained what I mean there. You may have somebody on a Facebook page that distort what I've just said. Well, that doesn't worry me, because once I think something out carefully, I don't bother on ignorance. I don't bother on ignorance. Ignorance is a danger. So I'm concerned about it, but it doesn't bother me in my formulation. Otherwise, I'm not guided by ignorance. I want to select two philosophers. One who wrote in the 4th century, St. Augustine, bishop from North Africa, a man who laid the theological and organizational foundation for the modern Roman Catholic Church. In fact, there was Paul, and then there's Augustine, two phenomenal figures. And then I'll fast forward over 1,000 years to Machiavelli. If you all get a chance to read The City of God by St. Augustine, he begins with the proposition that human beings, by and large, are in a continued state of this condition of dissatisfaction permanently. And because this is so, in this earthly city, what Christians must do is adopt a position of political quietism, take care of themselves as best as they can, and wait until they go to the heavenly city. That's in summary, where they'll be fully satisfied. Of course, there are many theologians, including Catholic theologians like Thomas Aquinas, who came subsequently and said, no. We have to make the best of where we are here. We can't just be in a condition of political quietism. We have to be engaged. And I think most people accept the Aquinas' position. Machiavelli, advising the prince. Remember, the prince never had general elections. And Machiavelli said, listen, human beings in a condition of permanent dissatisfaction overwhelmingly. So it doesn't make sense you try to get them to love you. They're fickle, avid for gain, greedy. You're not going to get them to love you except in the most transient of ways. So since that can't happen, what do? You go for the other powerful emotion, the opposite of love, which is fear. Let them fear you. Well, Machiavelli is wrong about his prescription, so I think St. Augustine, but I believe their proposition was correct about the condition of dissatisfaction among human beings. Remember, Sir James had once memorably said that Vincent Jones to remember the last meal. He was coming from that proposition, but his conclusion was wrong. That's why you don't say also that people are ungrateful. That's not the position either. Machiavelli may say so, but what happens is that people have different levels when they come from one place to the next.
have to understand what is something in human beings. That drives progress too, you know. You have to look for things. People are very dissatisfied with the extent of horses or fowl on the streets of London. In 1891, the London Times trumpeted in an editorial that in 50 years' time, London would be unlivable. What happened? The place would be filled with horses or fowl. For those who are listening who don't know what offal is, can look it up. It begins with the word horses, S, ending with a T. That's what the offal is. But by the early 20th century, by the first years of the 20th century, the combustion engine had been invented. And there were fewer horses about in London and just less offal. And then people later on became concerned about pollution from hydrocarbons. And the 50 years later that the Times editorial talked about, not only were there many cars on the roads, but the Spitfire was in the sky bomb in Berlin. So the dissatisfaction prompts people to invent things and for progress and so forth. But then one creates another level of dissatisfaction and contradictions, but you have to understand it. So without reflection, without understanding and without wisdom and applying your heart to wisdom, you're not going to solve this conundrum. I think so. I provide that as part of the philosophical backdrop of where I'm going to these 10 foundational elements. If I sound a little bit like Bishop Porter, because he's a wise man. These 10 foundational elements are: A, people-centered philosophy; 1, a people-centered vision; 2, philosophy of social democracy; 3, our Caribbean civilization; 4, good governance; 5, our economic approach; 6, the quest to build a modern, competitive, many-sided post-colonial economy; 7, the central economic outcomes; 8, the sustainable development goals; 9, a mature regionalism; 10, an efficacious foreign policy. As I read them, you can begin to see how this particular program in a wider policy is located and how they're connected. Now, when this manifesto comes to you, after we have fashioned it through our internal processes, and when you elect me, when you elect the government, this is what we implement. We may have to amend here, there, and anywhere, here and there, but the foundational principles remain. The foundational elements are there to be applied in the extant circumstances. And this is a bond between me and you. And anytime they will tell you in the cabinet, anytime something arises and somebody wants to provide something which is contrary to what we put here, I remind them about this. I said, not that we can't correct it, but we have to tell the people why we are correcting it. This is our bond. This is what ties us together. It's not a flippant transaction. It is fundamental to the process of democracy and to citizenship. These things may sound quote unquote old-fashioned, but there are many things which are old, which are always new, which are always fresh. There are some places you never grow old. That's why the song says, never grow old in the land where you'll never grow old. But here, certain things do not go out of style. For instance, training doesn't go out of style. Education doesn't go out of style. Hard work and discipline don't go out of style. Decency doesn't go out of style. Honesty doesn't go out of style. They're tried and tested values of our Caribbean civilization. About a Pahima, you old-fashioned. Well, there are many old-fashioned things which have brought us this far and which would help to take us safely home. We better believe it. I can take it from somebody who is more revolutionary today than I was when I was young. I'm more revolutionary today than when I was young. But I'm wiser. And I know how to sequence change better. And I know how we have to manage the change. And also to be humble enough to know that you will not be able to achieve everything in your lifetime. The world doesn't come to an end. The world of achievement doesn't come to an end only with you. I'm talking things here for all of us. Today is a Friday for reflections in addition to this. So I say I'm going to try and add value. So I want to deal with these 10 foundational elements very swiftly. I'll read them. First, the vision of the ULP. The vision of the ULP is people-centered. It puts people first in every respect. Its philosophy, policies, and programs stem from the proposition that our nation is founded on the belief in the supremacy of God and the freedom and dignity of man and woman. That's the vision. People-centered. Second one, philosophy. The philosophy of the ULP is grounded in the universal ideas of social democracy as applied to the condition of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It holds aloft the deeply held desire for our people, for our society to be so ordered as to express their recognition and adherence to the principles of democracy, free institutions, social justice, and equality before the law. Our philosophical tenets proclaim that the maintenance of human dignity presuppose safeguarding the right of privacy, of family life, and of property, the fostering of just economic rewards for labor, the promotion of social equity and supportive safety net for the disadvantaged, and the maintenance of peace and citizen security. It's the philosophy of social democracy applied to our own circumstances. Third, our Caribbean civilization. Our philosophy of social democracy recognizes that real flesh and blood individuals are aggregated in families and communities to build an integrated, cohesive society. The society, through the fever of our history, has shaped the magnificent Vincentian component of our Caribbean civilization. This Caribbean civilization provides the benchmarks, matrices, and framework for the evolution of our culture, so essential to our life, living, material production, and resource distribution. We engender our firm and solemn belief that although we are not better than anyone, no one is better than us. Indeed, our civilization is possessed of its own legitimacy, historical authenticity, nobility, and uniqueness. Our Caribbean civilization has evolved as a veritable symphony. It embraces metaphorically the songs of our indigenous people, the Kalinago and Garifuna, the rhythm of Africa, the melody of Europe, the chords of Asia, and the homegrown lyrics of the Caribbean. Like all symphonies, dissonances do emerge. But in our Caribbean, including our St. Vincent and the Grenadines, our culture and our institutions have fashioned approaches and mechanisms to resolve or address satisfactorily those dissonances. Fourth, foundational tenet, good governance. And good governance is reflected in this, what we have done here. This is a paper presented to me by the public servants about this program. And this program, there's an oversight, there's an the oversight body involves the Chamber of Industry and Commerce and the officials from economic planning, Invest SVG, the Department of Labor, Ministry of Education, Ministry of National Mobilization, and Community College. You don't see a politician name on top of it. We made the policy. Some constituencies have more than others, but if you check the list, West Kingston, which is held by the opposition, I think has 12 or 13 persons on this list. Same thing with North Leeward. In fact, North Leeward might have 11, I think. Depends on who employ, who apply, and how the program is and how you connect them with the individuals. Just there's some people names, even the Prime Minister I saw on the list. I'd love to see if they could have get on, but they were not fitted in relation to the requisites of the employers. Good governance. Our dynamic society and its uplifting civilization have established a formal state apparatus which is grounded in the values and philosophy of social democracy as reflected in our nation's constitution. The ULP from the start has committed itself and continues to commit itself in theory and practice to an alive constitutionalism and an internationally acclaimed regime of good governance. Our government's good governance has been recognized regionally and globally as being of the highest quality. St. Vincent and Grenadines, under our leadership, continues to score very high marks for political democracy and representative government, responsible and responsive government, a politically impartial and sound system of public administration, the independence and quality of the judiciary and the rule of law, accountability and the freedom of the press, efficient, accessible, and inclusive governance, political hygiene, and the absence of political corruption, and citizen security. Then we go to, and I'll speak about these other three together. Our economic approach, the quest to build a modern, competitive, many-sided post-colonial economy, and the central economic outcomes. This is what we have to say, and that's, you can see why you're here with us. The economic approach of the ULP is to cultivate or fashion a tripartite partnership between the private sector, business and labor, the cooperative sector, credit unions and cooperatives, and the state in a harmonious and integrated manner to ensure optimal benefits for all stakeholders and our people as a whole. This is what the partnership is about. The economic approach is in the quest of building a modern, competitive, many-sided post-colonial economy which is at once local, national, regional, and global. The central desirable outcomes, economic outcomes of this economic path and quest are job creation, wealth creation, a balanced, open economy of diverse economic pillars, economic growth, fiscal, monetary, and financial stability, targeted strategic interventions. This is a targeted strategic intervention. Economic inclusiveness, equity, and fairness. Each of the above formulations in our economic approach or economic quest and central desirable economic outcomes is pregnant with real meaning and will be further elaborated in our manifesto. In other words, there are specific policies and programs under these headings. The eighth foundational element is the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Central to our government's embrace of social consolidation, social inclusiveness, and social development, and our people's social upliftment is a practical commitment to the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, to which our Prime Minister formally signed on at the United Nations in September 2015, and to which our government has committed itself to achieve by the year 2030. Well, the deadline might have to go a little bit beyond 2030 because we didn't anticipate COVID and so forth. These Sustainable Development Goals cover a gamut of policies and programs, including those touching and concerning poverty reduction and the abolition of extreme hunger, health and education for all, housing and the environment, applied science and technology, climate change and renewable energy, information technology, culture and sports, physical infrastructure, rural and urban life, and fostering multilateral developmental partnerships. Those are the summary of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. That last one, and fostering multilateral developmental partnerships. Yeah, I believe they're playing Chronicle song, Wet Me Down. Chronicle from Open Shops. No, it's a healthy party song. It's about it doesn't have any double entendre. It's about a wet fete. Yeah. Yes. 76-year-old men listen to young men from shops, Don't think that I don't listen to them. Don't think I don't listen to them. Very good music. At least I could understand the words. Some I can't understand the words. But this one had good clarity. The 17 Sustainable Development Goals has the building of developmental multilateral partnerships. So when I go overseas, singly or whether we go in groups, to engage developed countries, countries which have far more resources than us. When people say, Ralph, go on to beg, I'm not begging. We are involving in developing a multilateral partnership, bilateral and multilateral partnership, to which all of us signed on to in respect of the achievement of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Because Taiwan knows that their survival, their continued existence as a progressive democratic country with an ancient civilization of 6,000 years, it has to connect with the world. We have to connect with the world. I can't go. And rather than going and doing things with going to other countries, you think I could go and sit down in Big Lion shop in Canary and eat his magnificent chicken and drink coconut water there? You think anybody come in there come talk to me? Joe Biden doesn't have to go anywhere, People line up to go and talk to him because he's the president of the largest, most powerful country in the world. The US dollar is the reserve currency of the world, practically. Strongest economy, biggest military might. They're lining up to talk to Joe Biden. You think Joe Biden is a better conversationalist than Ralph? Maybe. He has an Irish ancestry and he could blarney a lot. I know him. But the point is this. They're lining up to see him. They're not lining up to see me. Because I'm prime minister of a country which is 150 square miles, admittedly, with a much larger seascape, an independent country. But if we were blown off the map, it would be headline news on BBC for 2, 3 days, 4 days. And the question would be, those who survive, where are they going to transport them to? Are they going to go to Barbados? If they didn't get blown up, Jamaica, Haiti? Or are we going to have a wet foot, dry foot policy for Vincent Johns because the place blown up to go to Miami? Let's Let's understand. Let's grasp the real world. But at the same time, that mustn't hold us back. We are here living. We have, as I say, we are part of a Caribbean civilization, a magnificent one. And through the fever of history, we haven't done badly. And thank God we are where we are. And when we had Soufrière, when 20,000 persons had to be evacuated, we were able to manage it without losing one single life because of the way we planned before, and because of the resilience of our people, and because of our interaction with our regional and global friends. So please, and then when I go somewhere, oh, he's just a traveler all about. He's like a bird, you know. Why not buy your own plane? Well, look at what is brought to the country. And I'll talk about Taiwan and ourselves. So we have to be mature in our reflections on these things. What happens is this, that people seek to promote a kind of, some opportunists try to play on some people's ignorance and play upon a sense of village parochialism. What are you going there for? Yet the same person they're telling that, they don't realize that that person is saying, even though that person not working, they want to go to England on a holiday. They want to go to America on a holiday. You're not working, but you want a holiday. And they're the ones you're trying to convince and tell them that Ralph wasn't going to look for money for you to help to develop the country. When I'm making policy, I'm making it knowing all of you and what you're thinking, and knowing the man at the waterfront, and the sanitation worker and the man in the fields. A lot of people who don't know the people in the countryside, for example. And I'm coming to mature regionalism and foreign policy as the 9th and 10th of the foundational principles. You listen to some people in tongue, they talk about agriculture. The foot never dirty yet. They tell you how much they love the soil, and they think they could speak for farmers. You know, and they have an idealized notion. Meanwhile, when they talk about the love for the soil, the farmer thinking about how he paying his bills. You want to have more children so you can cut down on the number of hands which he had to pay to help labor, and to find transportation and how the road is going, and those are the things, you know, not some idealized fictional notion of farmers. I'm the son of a small farmer, so I should know what I'm talking about, and I live it. Mature regionalism and an efficacious foreign policy. A small multi-island nation like St. Vincent and Grenadines cannot survive in the challenging and difficult external environment without a profound practical commitment to an effective implementation of a mature regionalism and an efficacious foreign policy. Our government has played a leading role in the creation and evolution of multiple Caribbean, Latin American, and hemispheric institutions, which have brought immense benefits to our people and our nation. Without our mature and activist participation in these regional and hemispheric bodies, the extant challenges in our country's further development are likely to overwhelm us. Similarly, without a principled and pragmatic foreign policy, grounded in the fundamental tenets of the Charter of the United Nations and our national interests, St. Vincent and Grenadines will be adrift in a hostile world. Recently, we became the pro tempore president of CELAC, the Community of States of Latin America and the Caribbean. And people say, well, oh, Ralph do that for his CV. I'm looking for another job, my CV. I mean, just listen to that kind of dotishness. I mean, I going for another job? Huh? I mean, come on. The what is this thing? They're not listening, but you do something, and every time you have an ambition to do something. We are now, as the pro tempore president of CELAC, we are speaking for 650 million people in Latin America and the Caribbean. Imagine that, 110,000 people speaking for all. Just imagine. You would want to know the amount of connections which have come out of this. Are we preparing actively for engagements? For instance, we have a summit with the European Union on the 17th and 18th of July, CELAC. Imagine St. Vincent and Grenadines in its relations with Europe is leading. Brazil is 220 million people. Mexico is 130. Argentina is 47 million. They're the G20, among the most powerful, the 20 largest economies in the world. It's an incredible story. But at page 99 of our manifesto, in dealing with foreign policy and mature regionalism, integration and the diaspora, one of the bullet points during the next 5-year term, the ULP government will further use the instruments of our foreign policy and mature regionalism to enable the Vincentian people, including through advancing further integration and mature regionalism with the OECS and CARICOM, and making regional integration in the OECS CARICOM, the Association of Caribbean States, and the Community of States of Latin America and the Caribbean, CELAC, the bedrock of our foreign policy. You voted for me to do what I did, If you didn't read it, it's not my fault. If you didn't listen to me, but take it out when you enter the ballot box and you voted me to do that, I tell you, it's a pact I have with you. I know many people, they get these things and they send it for their son or their daughter in America. It's like a collector's item now. So you could pass it down like some kind of heirloom or something, but it's a living document. No, Taiwan. Within here, we couldn't be doing this without Taiwan money. I want to tell you this. I want to tell you something practical. If you look in the estimates, you will see as of September the 30th last year, we had disbursed public debt to Taiwan of $100 million. And we had signed for ongoing disbursement $477 million. 177 million US dollars. The money for the $62 million at the port, the $50 million for the hotel down, these are US dollars, down at Moncton, the $20 million for the parliament and the courthouse, the recent $45 million for the US, for the road program. We have signed that agreement. We have signed on to the terms. We've gone to Parliament. We have approval. They have sent a draft agreement with the Export-Import Bank. We have indicated already, you got the letter from the Director General of Finance and Planning say we are satisfied with the agreement. All these are short-term, all these are soft loans. Usual terms about 20 years, 22 years, and 5 years grace at interest rates which are quite reasonable. So when those are dispersed, this is distinct from every year we get about $4 million in grants, US. So when 2025 comes, we would have at least $577 million, maybe 600 million. And that's if we don't contract any other soft loans with them, because we pay them, so that it's business for the institutions too. So it might well be more. I hear the talk that when it's all right, they're talking about mainland China will give you 200 million. Okay. So they give you 200 million. When you switch your relations, the 200 million, you have to pay Taiwan immediately, because you break relations with them, the loans become due right away. So what position you in? And you got the students in Taiwan, what are you going to do? You're going to take them and send them to Beijing? Or you're going to pay the money? Or you're going to pay for them in Taiwan? They wouldn't throw them out from Taiwan, you know. They wouldn't throw them out from Taiwan. But Taiwan wouldn't pay for them, and the parents can't pay for them. I mean, the government will have to pay $20 million for them. Or pull them out and let it start courses afresh in Beijing. You have over 100 students there. I don't know why people don't look and reflect at what interests are. I'm not getting involved in the internal business of the People's Republic of China. We work with China in the Caribbean Development Bank. They're a non-borrowing member. We work with them in the World Bank and with the IMF. We worked at the United Nations with them. We work at the UN with them. We work at the Security Council when we were there in 2020 and 2021. I'm not getting involved in their internal affairs. Mainland China and the Taiwanese, they come from the same civilization. 6,000 years ago, it's fractured since 1949, since the People's Republic of China was established. Between then, that's 51 and 23, that is 74 years. They have been fractured as a civilization 74 years out of 6,000 years. Why am I going to involve myself in that for? Huh? They would resolve their problems without my assistance or anybody else's assistance. If they don't resolve it for another 500 years, it's less than 10% of the time of their civilization. Relatively speaking, a moment in their civilization's history. What I want is for the peace and security across the Taiwan Straits. That's the principle in global affairs that I go for there. Mainland China wants Taiwan. Taiwan, between 40 and 50% of Taiwan's foreign direct investment are in mainland China. It's a complicated world. You know, recently, I don't know if you all looked at it. Mainland China, following Nancy Pelosi's visit, they banned 100 commodities from Taiwan. I went down the list. They banned potato chips from Taiwan. But I looked down. They ain't banned computer chips. You cannot consume Taiwan potato chips, but you can consume their computer chips. You see why my feet are on the ground? We have principled relations with Taiwan. Two of our closest friends in the Caribbean and Latin America, Cuba and Venezuela, they have relations with the People's Republic of China. Yet, we all worked on the Argyle International Airport together. I kept the Taiwanese on the terminal building, and I kept the Cubans and the Venezuelans on the aerodrome. As I told Fidel, I said I will keep them apart. When I was opening, I appreciate people's sensitivities, you know. When we were breaking ground, the airport for the aerodrome, I called the then Taiwanese ambassador. I said, I'm having on the platform Cuba and Venezuela and Trinidad and Tobago because they were very important on the aerodrome. I'm not going to have you on the platform. It's not a slight of you. You can have a seat in front. We would invite you if you wish to come. Your flag wouldn't be raised. We raised Cuba flag. We raised Venezuela flag. We raised the Trinidad and Tobago flag and the St. Vincent and Grenadine flag. They understood. When we were breaking ground for the terminal building, they started. I tell my brethren and sister from Cuba and Venezuela, well, you just have to chill out on this one. You know, you can do the same thing. I conduct, on behalf of the government, the foreign policy of the country in the interest of our country, not in a transactional manner, but in a principled manner. So when they come and tell you at the end of the mainland Chinese rainbow, there's a pot of gold. Well, I tell you, to use the language of James Mitchell, I have a hook in the gill. You would have to pay them back all their money. You know, the agreements which we have with them are covered. We lay them in Parliament, you know. The law of New York, the state of New York applies to those agreements. And the forum is the law courts in New York, the state of New York. I want to tell you what awaits you if you do foolishness and you lose your mature judgment. Huh? But there'll be more of that between now and very much so, the general elections of 2025. Remember, I say nothing against the internal regime of the People's Republic of China. In fact, I read everything by everybody. I must be the only head of government anywhere in the world outside of mainland China. I have the 4 selected volumes of Mao Zedong, published in 1964, under the editorship of the Gang of 4, which included Mao's wife. I read the 4 selected volumes of Deng Xiaoping. I read the 2 volumes of the current chairman in mainland on mainland China. I also read the 6 selected volumes written in English of the founder of the Republic of China in 1911, Sun Yat-sen. I read everything. And I use my experience, my knowledge, and apply my heart to wisdom. The people in mainland China, they tell other persons in the Caribbean, other leaders, they say, Ralph is a puzzle. I'm not a puzzle. We don't have a for sale sign in our foreign ministry. I'm not selling this country. So you can't bring $200 million US to say it's a gift to me, to the government. I'm not saying they offer it, but that is the numbers which I hear the opposition talk about. The program for SET and the program for on-site, as Camille tell you, about 1,100 people, Camille, 1,100 people. Each of those programs is supported by the Republic of China and Taiwan by way of grants. And I want to thank them very much. There are countries which have had relations with the Republic of China and Taiwan. You hear them denouncing what happened internally in mainland China. And within a year, they ditched Taiwan and gone to mainland China. They put a for sale sign in their Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We do not have a for sale sign in our ministry for anybody. Not for Taiwan, not for mainland China, not for America, not for those who want our passport and our citizenship. None of them. And you know, when the United States of America, when they didn't invite Cuba, Venezuela, and Nicaragua to the Summit of the Americas, the only country outside of those 3, well, nobody, for all the CARICOM countries, the only one which did not go was St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And I explained to the Americans, but we have very good relations with the Americans. But if you say you're inviting everybody from Latin America and the Caribbean, the summit, you can't then say, and people agree that you should, you can't then turn around and say, you're not inviting them, those 3. Well, if you can't invite everybody, don't say you want to be a host. And as I told the Americans, it's not only a matter of bad policy, it's bad manners. And great powers must not have bad manners. Our parents taught us to have good manners. If I agree to invite all the employers to the residence of the Prime Minister to have a cocktail to celebrate this, I can't turn and say, I don't want Tom or Eric or Mary or Elizabeth because they don't support me. I will have bad manners. And we do not have bad manners. At least we aspire not to have bad manners. At the same time, for those who want me to denounce a whole set of things that are happening inside of the United States of America, I say, well, they have their institutions internally dealing with them. I can't lift up St. Vincent, carry it to Vladivostok. It is where it is. You want me to forget that most of the tourists come from America? You want me to forget that the largest Vincentian city in the world is Brooklyn? You see why I tell you, which I begin with, which I must end with. We must read the book of life, living and production. We must read the book of history and the book of ideas. And we do that in accordance with the principles which I've just outlined. We'll be going somewhere. This program is located within which we said to you that we will do. One final point. I know that you have a lot of people who criticize our institutions of democracy and justice, and we must always criticize them to make them more perfect. The fact of the matter is this: the people in this country, in this Caribbean, believe in a government and an opposition. They believe that you come in every 5 years to seek a mandate, and for them to have their freedoms in the period of time and doing things, everything in the Constitution. Those who think that you must change that system of government and have a one-party state or a no-party state. The no-party state was, once had that, in colonialism. There was only one party, the colonial party out of London, with nobody else. We have to be realistic, yet at the same time embrace change. And we have to change through the parliamentary process, through law. And that involves compromises and give and take. I've written all about it in my recent book called A Time of Respect. Beyond COVID, volcanic eruptions, hurricane, Elsa, global turmoil, fresh hope for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. That is the 10th, 11th book I've written in the last 12 years. Part of my job is to write it down, my knowledge, my experience, whatever wisdom that I have, for you to see. All of that helped to bring us where we are here today. What a magnificent civilization we have. So many employers. Many of them young persons are starting up businesses which had prime.
Right.
Some established businesses. We're doing it together. I listened to Tony. And Tony was speaking to the issue of what is called in the modern period now ESG. Businesses are not only concerned with the bottom line. The bottom line is important for survival, but you have to be concerned about the environment, which is the E, the S is the social, and G, the governance of the business, the ESG. The auditors will tell you about this. What is anybody in governance, corporate governance will tell you that those are new phenomena that people look for in businesses. Because we have all come to realize, at least I have realized, and it is a position of the government, which is a subject I'm reflecting on as to how we can best reset on an ongoing basis. I've written foundational principles. We set all the relationships between the individual, the family, the market, the state, the society, the region, and the world. We know that individualism, naked individualism, will not work. Any society which consists only of an aggregation of atomized individuals, individuals only for themselves, such a society is not sustainable. You must have solidarity. So you must have the social individual. The market has proven itself to be quite good in most cases in producing goods and services. But the market has shown itself not to be very good at redistributive justice, at environmental sustainability. The state has to therefore regulate and intervene. The state cannot create families. Families predated the state. And those who just want to replace me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister Dr. the Honourable Ralphie Gonsalves, as always giving us food for thought.